Up next, a sampling of historical sites in Montgomery County as we preview Heritage Days. Hi, I'm Gail Street, and this is Paths to the Present. Well, Heritage Days is just around the corner. Every year on the last weekend in June, this two-day event offers visitors an opportunity to sample local history, culture, and the natural beauty of Montgomery County. To give you just a taste of what you can expect, this show takes a look at a few offerings from previous years. Designed to demonstrate just how much history can be found right in your own backyard, Heritage Days has grown to include more than 30 historical sites. Since 1997, this free weekend-long festival presents special programming, musical offerings, and entertainment for the young and the young at heart. You can enjoy a trip on a ferry, walk an Underground Railroad trail, visit a dairy barn museum, or ride a restored 1921 carousel. All these sites and more are open on Heritage Days. Last year, our cameras toured a few, focusing our lens on some African American historical sites. First stop, the Button Farm. Run by the Menaire Foundation, the Button Farm is located off Black Rock Road in Germantown. Executive Director Tony Cohen describes the location.
We're a 40-acre farm site inside of Seneca Creek State Park, and we depict 1850s plantation life in Maryland by basically working the land. We have over 75 different heirloom vegetables and herbs we grow, pulled straight from the agricultural records of Montgomery County. We have heritage breed animals from that period of time, and we're restoring the buildings of our farm. We are currently erecting an 1850s log cabin in our 17-acre field, which will become our 1850s farm. People come out. Sometimes we have demonstrations, living history reenactors, or period artisans who do everything from spinning and weaving to blacksmithing and quilt making. When volunteers come out, they actually do plantation chores. So they help us keep the grounds up. They do everything from soil preparation, planting, cultivating, and harvesting of crops. We have a 4-acre area that is planted for our CSA and farmers market. We have a museum garden, has a lot of the specialty heirloom crops, and a little tour to go with that.
Tell me what you got there.
Well, we have 11 different breeds of chickens, and each breed lays a different color egg. Shell color doesn't really matter in terms of nutrition or anything, but it's just kind of colorful variation.
Also on the property is a slave cemetery. Marks on these stones identify the grave sites. Another focus of the Button Farm is the Underground Railroad.
I think now we're in a time where people just want to know how they came to be. And the Underground Railroad has such a cherished place in the American memory. So people are really excited not only about that, but the history behind it. Which is the history of slavery in America. And people can come out, they can learn a bit about that bittersweet history, also just really be appreciative of all of the different collective experiences that we have as Americans.
Everywhere I go!
And on this Heritage Days weekend, Mosaic Harmony performed at the Button Farm. Have a listen.
A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.
All right.
From the Button Farm, we move south to Gaithersburg and the site known as Pleasant View. Vernon Green's ancestor donated the land to the community.
The Pleasant View site consists of 3 acres. You have a cemetery. You have this church. They also built a school here. And that was before public education for blacks. The land for the church was purchased in 1868 by my great-great-grandfather. He donated land for the church, but they couldn't afford to build a church for 20 years, so they worshiped in schoolhouses. And then I think in 1888 they built the first structure. That schoolhouse wasn't the original schoolhouse. The original schoolhouse was in 1872. That schoolhouse was moved over here in 1901. At that time it was segregation, and the black school burnt down. So they moved it over here. And that school itself is at least since 1902.
On this day, a former alumna returned to reminisce.
There used to be 2 teachers here, one on that side of the room and one on this side of the room. Probably had about maybe 2 rows, of each grade. This was the only room. They built that room over there later on, and it went from the 5th to the 7th grade.
The folks at Pleasant View put on a good old-fashioned church picnic. There was food, fellowship, and of course, music. Here's an excerpt by the Royal Harmonizers.
He had pity, she ran back to the city, crying glory, hallelujah, I'm gonna let his praises swell. Every time she died him, she stopped and think about him. The man that gave her the living water, and it was not from the well. He gave her water, Jesus gave her water, Jesus, he gave me water, I'm gonna let his praises swell. Jesus gave that woman water, he gave her that everlasting water. Oh, and it was not from the well. He gave her water, Jesus gave her water. Oh, Jesus gave her water, I'm gonna let his praises swell. Jesus gave that woman water, he gave her that everlasting water. Oh, and it was not from the well.
Moving on, we travel to the tiny community of Boyds, where this African-American schoolhouse has been preserved. Maggie Bartlett explains.
Welcome. This is the Boyds Negro School. It is one of the places in the Boyds Historical Society that we help to maintain. And this school is a one-room schoolhouse. The kids went to school from 1896 to 1936. This school actually was for blacks, and it had classes from 1st grade to 7th grade. When the school closed in 1936, the students would go to another schoolhouse that could handle more students.
Our last stop is the St. Paul Church in Sugarland near Poolsville. Freed slaves established the community in the late 1800s. One of their descendants, Gwen Reese, explains.
My great-grandfather, Philip Johnson, was an ex-slave, and he was one of the prominent landowners here in Sugarland, and he was also a minister. One of the first things that they did was to establish the church, and that the original church was back in the 1870s. The church that's here, it was built in 1893, and my great-great-uncle, Nathan Johnson, was the postmaster. The mail came in by horseback, and then from Poolsville. So a little bit of history about the church. It was the site of the first interracial marriage in the state of Maryland after a 306-year-old ban was lifted. The cemetery dates back to the early 1800s. There's one thing that I would like to mention is that when we had the original church, the original cemetery was in front of the church. There's a little plaque honoring them. And I was told that there were 2 graves there, but they were supposed to have been moved to the back of the church. And one winter, when I was up cleaning the brushes in the shrubbery area, I literally fell over the headstone. That's how I found them. So evidently they forgot to move the graves. Or they moved the grave and they didn't move the headstone. I don't know. The one that we were talking about. We're standing at the grave site of Philip Johnson, the ex-slave. This is his wife here, Rachel. She's a Seneca Indian. And this is Philip's headstone here. And my grandfather made the markers. And if you notice back then, you know, they wasn't that fluent in writing. So if you notice, the S is backwards. But it's really cool. And we're still using the cemetery to the present time. People are still being buried here. We're presently documenting the history of the community and the genealogy, and we hope to present a living history, whereas school children can come in and open to the public, to where they can come and learn about what it's like to come out of slavery, how they survived, and their lifestyle.
Inside the church, the Washington Revels Jubilee Voices treated visitors to a performance.
Sun don't set in the morning, Lord. Sun don't set in the morning. Light shine round the world. Pray on, sister. Pray on, sister. Pray on, sisters. Light shine round the world. Sun don't set in the morning. Sun don't set in the morning, Lord. Sun don't set in the morning. Light shine round the world.
Pray on, brothers.
Pray on, brothers. Pray on, brothers. Light shine round the world. Sun don't set in the morning. Sun don't set in the morning, Lord. Sun don't set in the morning. Light shine round the world.
Remember, Heritage Days is coming up at the end of June. Every year is different, so be sure to visit the Heritage Montgomery website for this year's schedule. Go to www.heritagemontgomery.org and locate some history right in your own backyard. Well, that's it for this show. If you have comments or ideas for future shows, send us an email to paths.present@verizon.net. I'm Gail Street. Thanks for watching.